Hey y'all, DMV SoloRider, back with the rare video. Your eyes do not deceive you. I am on a FTR R Carbon. It's a 2022, brand new. Had 5 miles on it when I bought it less than a month ago. And yes, today we are going to wrap up my final thoughts on my former 2020 Indian Challenger Limited after almost 31,000 miles from an FTR. Let's hit it. So before we dive into the Challenger, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, how in the world did you end up trading a Challenger for a 1-year-old FTR? But I did want to address some administrative items, namely my motovlogging setup, because this is a mess. That's not going to work. I'm going to have to figure out something better for my rear-facing camera, or maybe scrap it. And I honestly have no idea how the mic's going to sound. In all the mileage on this bike, I got about almost 400 miles. I'm still in the break-in period, haven't touched sport mode yet. Plenty of highway riding, and the wind noise in my Ruroc is overwhelming. Even with earplugs, you hear plenty of wind noise. Same thing with the HJC. I have not been on the bike that much since I got it. You know, a few rides, including you know, a 5-hour ordeal getting it home from Pennsylvania. My ass still hurts from that. But anyways, I'm gonna have to whip out my Shoei and see how that fares, see if it does any better. Like I said, even with earplugs, it's just 100% wind noise. I can't hear my exhaust at all. Even when I jam on the throttle, I hear nothing. I only hear the exhaust if I'm, you know, going 15 miles an hour or at a stoplight, you know, that's it. So I'll have to work on that. This is, I'm filming. My plan is to put this video out, but, you know, I'm on the highway on this bike. Might be a disaster. Anyways, let's get into it. So, how do you go from a bike you absolutely love in your Indian Challenger with the coolest sissy bar on the planet to an FTR? And I guess the first thing I would tell you guys is every positive thing I've ever said about the Challenger, I meant it from the bottom of my heart. I absolutely love that bike. It was a great ride. It never failed to please me, never let me down. You know, at the end of the video, I'll put the little title cards for my other 2 review videos for the Challenger. If you're curious about them, encourage you to go check them out. I have no idea where I'm riding right now. I was going to go down to Crofton, but it's 30 miles from here, and GPS says it's over an hour ride on the highway. So, yeah, I'm not interested in stop-and-go traffic today. We're just riding wherever. But anyways, everything I've ever said about the Challenger, I meant. Every thought that I shared with you in my reviews in terms of power and performance, handling, reliability, none of that had anything to do with my trading in the bike. I was on point in everything I said about the Challenger. Reliability wise, never had a drop of oil, never had a mechanical failure of any kind. The only thing that ever broke on the bike was the windshield, which I think Indian has fixed it with the bracket that goes up and down. They now have a metal jacket inside, so I think that's resolved. And the bike was just a dream. Loved riding it. But, you know, when I moved into a bagger from my Scout, the dream is to hit the road and tour. And when I say tour, I don't mean going from point A to point B in a day. I've ridden down to Florida plenty of times on the Challenger in a day. You know, those kind of butt burner rides, you know, you do them when you need to. I'd rather do that than drive a car, but that's not really touring. It's not a ton of fun. You know, you spend your whole day kind of managing discomfort. You know, you guys who do long riding regularly, you know what I mean. But I had no time to tour. You know, when I got the bike, I did Back of the Dragon and all those roads down there. I did a ride to Key West, a 10-day trip. Had the best time, and I haven't had time to do a touring trip since. You know, yes, I do work a lot, but that's not really the barrier. I mean, I could always just not work. I'm a self-employed individual, but the reality is I have other responsibilities that keep me at home and make it really hard to be away for a long period of time on my bike. You see, I'm a cat dad. I have an 11-year-old cat who I love to death. I can see the thumbs down already. I love dogs too, it's okay. I just happen to have a cat because, you know, before I was working from home all the time, I didn't have time to walk a dog. She's 11, I've had her since she was 7 months old, and she's got a lot of medical issues right now. She's on a lot of medications, and, you know, giving pills to a cat ain't exactly easy. And when I have gone away for, you know, days or a week at a time, I have a great cat sitter, but she really struggles to give my cat her medication. You know, I don't want to leave my cat at the vet, you know, board her at the vet because she's never done that. She's old, she's crotchety, she don't want to deal with that nonsense. I want her to be comfortable, I want her to be at peace. And so, you know, I kind of got to the point where the last 2 times I rode my bike out for a week and, you know, my cat sitter was taking care of her. I was worried, increasingly worried over the course of those trips that I'd come home to a dead cat because she wasn't getting her medication right. And that's just stressful, kind of ruins your time. I don't want to deal with that. You know, for me, I owe it to my cat to be there for her because she's certainly been there for me at the lowest points of my life. You know, not to go into details, but there's a time in my life when the only question for me was waking up in the morning, well, how am I going to feed my cat today? What am I going to do? And that one goal helped me kind of climb out of a bad situation. So there's no version of my cat's life where I'm not going to do whatever I can to get her the help she needs. So I have no freedom to really take a long road trip on the bike. I can make the time now, I just don't have the stress-free comfort level to do it because I'm worried my cat will not make my trip. And no, I'm not taking my cat on the road. I mean, those make for cute Instagram pictures, but God forbid you have an accident. Like, I've got a chance, my cat doesn't. So that's why. Cat dad wanted to take care of his girl. I kind of started asking myself, well, if I can't take the kind of trips I want to take, if I can't ride the way I want to ride, why have a big bike? I can ride anything locally. And so I started thinking about it, well, you know, what else would I want to ride? And I didn't want a small cruiser, didn't want to get another Scout, didn't want to get a Chief. I'm not real crazy about the Chief, to be honest. You know, if you're going to get a bike, a cruiser, it shouldn't have a lean angle that paltry. But anyways, I said, you know, if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to trade in a bike I love for something different, for like an around town bike, let's go with something totally different. And I love the FTR. This was not my first choice. What I really wanted was an MT-09 SP, which I've ridden down at back of the Dragon. It's an awesome bike. I think the FTR compares favorably to it. I think the FTR is a heck of a lot more expensive though, and when it comes to value for money, you can't beat that MT-09. Having said that, I love the look of the FTR far better. It's a beautiful bike. MT-09 is not beautiful. Even the SP looks a little better, but still not beautiful. And long story short, you know, Indian's always offering promos on their bikes, so I got a good enough deal on the FTR. I got what I thought was a really fair value for my Challenger. You know, I traded in for $17,500. Bike had, you know, 30,700 miles on it. Had some chips in the fender, had some damage on the seat. You know, could I have done better selling it privately? Yes. Did I want to bother with all that and having to deal with people wanting to test ride a bike? No. So I just traded it in instead of trying to sell it myself. The dealer that sold me this bike now has my old bike listed for like 23 grand. Look, I'm telling you right now, my old bike is amazing. I love it. And Warhorse Indian Motorcycle up in Pennsylvania, great guys. But if you're about to spend $23,000 for any motorcycle that already has 30,000 miles on it, stop what you're doing, go buy a new one. I mean, maybe there are guys out there who just don't want new bikes. They want a tried and true bike. I don't know. I just can't imagine spending only $7,000 less on a Challenger than just going and buying a brand new one. I'm sure someone will buy it though. I don't really get the whole motorcycle dealership thing. I almost think maybe it's like a pyramid scheme. They give it an honest valuation of 23 grand. It doesn't sell. They probably send it to auction, and then they count it as a loss on the books for tax purposes. That's my guess. I know I would never go buy even my old bike for 23 grand. A used bike with 30,000 miles on it. Not gonna happen. Now, this is not an FTR review video of any kind. I just wanted to kind of give you the backstory on why I decided to trade in the Challenger. But again, you know, just to cap it off, if you're looking for a bagger and you've got your eye on a Challenger, go get it. Don't hesitate. It's an amazing bike. And I'm a big fan of the Road Glide, just to be clear. I love the Road Glide fairing. I think that the Road Glide fairing, to me, with the limited experience I have on a Road Glide, is actually better than the Challengers. But the Challenger overall is a better bike than the Road Glide, in my opinion. And I've got to say, you know, on all my motorcycles, once it came to putting a windshield on the Scout, and then, you know, you got the fairing and the windshield on the Chieftain and the Challenger, once I had that barrier in front of me, I've always dealt with a little bit of buffeting. You know, plenty on the Scout with the windshield, plenty on the Chieftain, a lot less on the Challenger, but I still had some. And on the FTR, I have none. I feel plenty of wind, but there's zero buffeting. And it's such a treat to not have my helmet shaking against my head. We'll see how long I keep this bike. You know, I mentioned that Indian has lots of promos. One of their promos was no payments for 7 months. I figure, you know, I'll ride the FTR for 5 months, and if after 5 months it's not for me, it's not a long-term solution, it's not a bike I can really enjoy comfortably, then I'll just go get something else. You know, in the 400 miles on the FTR with no buffeting whatsoever, I feel like if I have to get another bike, you know, probably a cruiser, it's not gonna be a fairing bike. You know, maybe a Road King, maybe a Springfield, I don't know. I would much rather have a bike where I can just put a windshield on and take it off, you know, strap it to a sissy bar. You know, when you're riding around locally, if you hit the highway, just throw the windshield on, and to me, that would be a superior solution. Having said that, this wind noise is something else, so we'll see. And just to be clear, it's not comfortable for me to be on this bike for long periods of time. Like, I can ride it for an hour at a stretch, and then I gotta get off, gotta stretch my neck, and I deal with the pain when I'm not riding, you know. And my setup with my Challenger and my Chieftain, they were so good that it was like physical therapy for my arthritis in my neck, and that ain't the FTR. So like I said, we'll see how this goes for 5 months, and if I decide that it's just not gonna work, then we'll go do some bike shopping videos. So there is one aspect of the Challenger I wanted to focus on. Not the bike itself, bike's awesome. And it's not really about the Challenger, it's about all Indian motorcycles. And you're gonna be like, well, but you're on your 4th Indian. Yeah, I get it. It's more because of the deal I got than because I intended to get another Indian. While I had great experience with all my Indian bikes, I've never had any mechanical issues. I have had some issues when it comes to service. And what I'm talking about is having a service tech who's very familiar with your bike and knows how to service it properly across the board. You know, when it comes to adjusting a belt, they do it the right way with the right tools. They don't just wing it or do it like they would do it on some other bike. And I didn't always have that experience at some Indian dealership. With Indian dealerships, there are two kinds. There are the multi-brand dealerships, you know, it's Indian and Triumph and Royal Enfield, BMW, all of that. And then there's the Indian-only dealership. At the Indian-only dealerships, never had an issue. Outstanding service, anything that needed to be tended to was done right immediately. At the other dealerships, not necessarily the case. And again, you know, my bikes have been reliable, so I haven't had to really worry about breakdowns and getting things fixed. What I have experienced, and you know, as we all know, during the pandemic, it started to become really hard to get into, you know, a service appointment in a convenient amount of time. You know, you don't necessarily know when you're going to need that oil change or when you're going to need new tires. So it's not like you can just go make an appointment a month in advance knowing that's when you're going to need it. And so when something comes up and, you know, you're taking a road trip and, you know, yeah, you might be 500 miles short of an oil change, you might as well just go ahead and get it done. It can be hard to get in there. But, you know, it's 2023 now. The pandemic is long over. And that kind of, you know, oh, it's hard for us to get employees and to get bikes in a timely manner. Like, there's only so much of that I personally am prepared to accept. And I've found that all of our Indian dealers in the area, and here in the DMV we have 4 within an hour of DC, and then a 5th that's about an hour and a half. So we have a lot. Like, We have more than most places as far as I can tell. But, you know, I was having a lot of trouble getting appointments. And, you know, when I was at like 28,000 miles, 29,000 miles, given the frequency with which I was riding, it was kind of hard to figure out, well, when do I need to get it in for the 30,000 mile appointment? And so I made that appointment, and when it was time to head down there, I called just to, you know, confirm there were no issues, and sure enough, they're like, oh, we just have you down for the oil change. And the 30,000 mile appointment is like 9 hours long. They can't just squeeze that in between other appointments. So it was like, they're like, yeah, we can't get you in for that for like another month. So that's an example of the one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about buying an Indian. Now, maybe Harley dealers are all having the same issue. I don't know. But I would just, you know, give that some thought, check into it. And, you know, to my point about some of these dealerships, the techs are not expert on Indians because they work on so many different kinds of bikes. Like, you know, I had experience on the Challenger where my belt would squeak because it was a little too loose or a little too tight. And at some types of Indian dealerships, they're just not really good about adjusting the belt properly. I actually had to take my bike to an Indian-only dealership a couple times to have them adjust the belt properly. Got rid of the noise completely. But, you know, when you're talking to the multi-brand dealerships and you're like, well, my bike's making noise, it sounds like a rusty swing set, it shouldn't. And they say, oh, we adjusted it, it sounds great. And as soon as you get on the bike, it sounds like a rusty swing set. That's not real cool. That's really all I had for today. I just wanted to make sure you guys know that I absolutely love the Challenger. If, God forbid, something happens to my kitty and I lose her, my guess is the first thing I'm going to do is go buy a Challenger. Maybe a Road Glide, we'll see. Maybe a Road King, maybe a Springfield. Something for touring. And I'll probably take 2 months off and just hit the road. I want to do all of that. I want to go out west. I want to see all the national parks. Maybe try my hand at some moto camping. That's not really my thing. I like to take a shower every day. But yeah, if you're thinking about getting a Challenger, you have the DMV SoloRider seal of approval. Amazing bike. Rides like a beast. Will never let you down. Will never be disappointing. Alright folks, that's what I got for you today. I am going to put on some music because I am getting tired of hearing whistling wind noise in my ears. You know, I don't know how many videos I'll film on the FTR. Filming was not like a thought when I did this switch. Winter's coming up. You know, I can plug in my heated gear into this bike without a problem. We'll see. But yeah, you know, we'll film when we film, and I'll try and get lots of pictures up on Instagram. And who knows, maybe in 5 months we'll be doing a bike shopping series. Might need a cruiser again. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, hope you guys have a great October and catch all that color that's coming our way. Y'all stay safe out there. DMV SoloRider is out.